is today the day I go to jail, or is today the day I get killed?
So Sonny says to you one time,
1981, Joe Pistone was in a hard situation as he infiltrated the Mafia. What he didn't know was that his undercover assignment would have him permanently running for his life. Here, sometimes cops infiltrated the wrong gangs. Kiki Camarena.
Kiki always wanted to do the right thing.
Kiki Camarena, the widow of deceased DEA agent Kiki Camarena.
1981. Ex-Marine Kiki Camarena was destined to be a star in the DEA. His assignment in Mexico was supposed to be the defining moment of his career, till it all went wrong. July 26, 1947, Enrique Kiki Camarena Salazar was born in Mexicali, Mexico, and later immigrated to Calexico, California with his family. Now, despite facing poverty and hardship after the divorce of his parents, Camarena persevered and graduated from Calexico High School. In 1970, he was discharged from the Marines, having served from when he graduated high school. Upon his return to Calexico, he became a police officer, heading up towards undercover narcotics work as a special agent on the Imperial County Narcotics Task Force, or ICNTF. Camarena's determination and resilience propelled him forward, paving the way for his future work as a DEA agent. In 1973, the DEA launched a strategic hiring initiative seeking Spanish-speaking agents to bolster its ranks. Camarena and his sister Mirna joined the agency the same year, with Mirna serving as a secretary and Enrique becoming a special agent in the Calexico residential office. 4 years later, Camarena relocated to the Fresno field office, where he excelled in undercover operations, targeting smuggling activities in the San Joaquin Valley. With his remarkable linguistic skills and ability to adapt, Camarena thrived in the high-stakes world of undercover work, earning a reputation as a driven and talented agent amongst his colleagues. 1980, a colleague and close friend who had recently transferred from Fresno to the DEA's Guadalajara residence office encouraged Camarena to apply for an open position. This foreign assignment would be a crucial career advancement opportunity. The Guadalajara office was experiencing a significant surge in workload, foreshadowing the impending drug trafficking explosion of the 1980s. At the time, Camarena was married with 3 young sons. The appealing spring-like weather, access to an American school, and favorable exchange rate in Guadalajara convinced Kiki and his family that the move would be a great opportunity for them all. During the summer of 1980, drug trafficking in Mexico was escalating rapidly when Camarena arrived in Guadalajara. Several factors contributed to this surge. President José López Portillo had curtailed aerial spotting and eradication efforts, ending American participation in 1978. This allowed producers to establish large plantations, making anti-drug operations difficult. Meanwhile, cocaine trafficking driven by Colombian smugglers was exploding in the U.S., becoming the DEA's primary target and relegating Mexican enforcement to secondary importance. During Camarena's 4.5 years in Guadalajara, major traffickers like Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, and Rafael Caro Quintero emerged, forming the Guadalajara cartel's core and coordinating production and operations. Camarena's investigations targeted the massive marijuana plantations that had emerged. Earlier plantations were hidden in remote mountains, yielding low-quality crops with high transportation costs. 1982, Camarena's work with informant Miguel Sanchez led to the groundbreaking discovery of a new style plantation. Sanchez befriended the plantation operator, who revealed its location near Vanegas, San Luis Potosi, and identified cartel member Juan José Esperagoza Moreno as the primary financier. Camarena conducted 2 solo overflights, confirming the plantation's existence, and then briefed Mexican authorities, leading to a September raid that destroyed over 4,000 tons of Sinsemilla marijuana, making it the largest plantation discovered at that time. 1984, Mexican soldiers, backed by helicopters, destroyed the massive 1,000-hectare Rancho Búfalo marijuana plantation in Allende, Chihuahua, with an estimated annual production value of $8 billion. The DEA's intelligence led to the raid, and Camarena was suspected of being the source.
I remember the children coming home. I had to tell them, that he had been tortured.
February 7, 1985. Corrupt Mexican officials, working for top drug traffickers, brazenly abducted Camarena in broad daylight. He was taken to a residence in Guadalajara owned by Rafael Caro Quintero, where he endured 30 hours of torture before being brutally murdered. March 5, 1985, his body was found wrapped in plastic in a rural Michoacan area with a punctured skull and broken ribs. Investigators into his death soon learned that Humberto Alvarez McChain, a physician, had allegedly prolonged Camarena's life so the torture could continue for those 30 hours. Investigators also identified Miguel Gallardo and his two associates, Ernesto Carrillo and Rafael Quintero, as the primary suspects in the kidnapping. The suspects in Camarena's death were then extradited to the U.S. Humberto Machain was later captured by bounty hunters in Mexico and taken to Texas, where he was promptly arrested by federal agents. Unfortunately, the federal case fell apart due to lack of evidence, and so he was set free and repatriated back to Mexico. April 8, 1989, Miguel Gallardo was arrested in Mexico. He was charged for Camarena's death and was initially jailed for 40 years, but after a retrial, he was hit with an additional 37 years. Jaime Zapata.
They were traveling alone through an area controlled by the Zetas, an especially ruthless drug cartel.
Jaime Zapata's impressive successes in combating drug cartels led to recognition in Homeland Security. It also brought him something he never wanted. Born in Brownsville, Texas, a vibrant border city adjacent to Matamoros, Tamaulipas, Mexico, Zapata was part of a family deeply rooted in criminal justice. He was one of 5 brothers, all of whom pursued careers in this field. 2005, after attending Homer Hanna High School, Zapata went on to graduate from the University of Texas at Brownsville. He earned a degree in criminal justice and an associate degree in applied science. This solid education foundation prepared him for a career in law enforcement, where he would make a meaningful impact. February 6, 2006, Zapata embarked on his career with U.S. Custom and Border Protection as a patrol agent. He proudly joined the 611th session of the U.S. Border Patrol Academy, and upon graduation, he was assigned to the Yuma Station in Arizona, where he honed in on those skills. In 2006, Zapata transitioned to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security Investigations, serving in Laredo, Texas, under the Office of the Deputy Special Agent. Now there, he played a crucial role in human smuggling and trafficking and Border Enforcement Security Task Force. He would dedicate himself to combating criminal organizations and protecting national security. On a special assignment for Customs Enforcement, 2 Homeland Security investigation agents, Jaime Zapata and Victor Avila, embarked on this journey from Laredo, Texas to Mexico City. As they navigated Highway 57, a federal 4-lane highway connecting Mexico City to Monterrey, they noticed 2 SUVs tailing them. The vehicles drove at high speeds, pursuing the agents aggressively. It didn't take long before their driving caught the attention of Agent Avila. Sensing a potential threat, the agent's instincts immediately kicked in as they continued down the highway, but they were unaware of the serious danger that lay ahead for them. Suddenly, one vehicle sped past the agent's Suburban, while the other gunman unleashed a hail of bullets, forcing him off the road. As Agent Avila rolled down his window to identify themselves as U.S. diplomats, a gunman jumped out, rifle in hand, and fired point blank. Zapata's quick thinking saved him, shifting the vehicle into park and automatically locking the doors. But the Zeta gunman persisted, yanking open the driver's side door and attempting to drag Zapata out. With remarkable strength, he fought him off, managing to relock the doors and temporarily thwart the attackers. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the agents took a bold step, cracking open the windows to engage with their attackers. They identified themselves as American diplomats, hoping to reason with the gunmen, who numbered around 15. Congressman McCall recounted the agents' desperate words,
"We're Americans, we're diplomats,"
only to be answered with a deadly spray of bullets. As the gunmen fled, Avila called for help on his cell phone. Meanwhile, Zapata, who had been badly wounded by the encounter, summoned out his last ounce of strength to put the car in gear and drive away from the scene. In response to Avila's last call, a Mexican federal police chopper quickly arrived at the scene to assist the wounded agents. Avila, who was stuck with 2 bullets in the leg, was taken to the hospital in Houston, Texas for urgent medical attention.
Mexican authorities fear the U.S. agents were targeted as they drove their armored SUV along a remote stretch of highway. The driver, Special Agent Jaime Zapata of Brownsville, Texas, was shot several times in the chest and killed.
Unfortunately, Jaime's injuries were more serious. He was hit with 3 bullets and died before he could arrive. According to federal sources, the agents were ambushed at a deceptive military checkpoint that had been set up by the gunmen clad in camouflage uniforms and machine guns. Shortly after the incident, the suspects were arrested. These suspects went to reveal in their interviews that they had mistakenly identified the agents as a rival drug cartel. However, the agents' accounts contradicts the claim, stating that the gunmen were well aware they were targeting U.S. law enforcement officers. When Zapata identified themselves as American diplomats, the Zetas callously responded,
We don't give a f***,
and opened fire. The diplomatic plates on the vehicle were also clearly indicating U.S. officials. Congressman Michael McCall of Texas emphasized that these gunmen knowingly attacked the agents after they had explicitly identified themselves as diplomats. Investigations further revealed that 2 Los Zetas hit squads were deployed on a mission to commandeer vehicles for the cartel's nefarious operations on that fateful day of Zapata's killing. And with calculated precision, the cartel members had targeted the armored Chevrolet Suburban, which was clearly marked with diplomatic plates as it traveled along the highway of South San Luis Potosi. As for the agents, they were victims of being in the wrong place at the wrong time when they were ambushed by ruthless gunmen who wanted to snatch that vehicle for their criminal enterprise. Joe Pistone.
Julie says to me one day, Donnie, why don't you come out tomorrow? Come out to my place in Brooklyn, his club in Brooklyn. I said, okay, Julie.
1981. The Mafia knew him as Donnie Brasco, a top Mafia lieutenant who rose the ranks doing petty crime. What the Mafia didn't know was going to shock him and put Joey Pistone, aka Brasco, in deep trouble. 1939. Joseph Pistone was born in Erie, Pennsylvania, to a family of Calabrian and Sicilian heritage. Now, he grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, where he attended Eastside High School. In 1965, he graduated from Paterson State College, now William Patterson University, with a degree in anthropology. After teaching at Patterson School No. 10 and serving in the Office of Naval Intelligence for 3 years, on July 7, 1969, Pistone had joined the FBI and was assigned to Jacksonville, Florida. And in 1974, he was transferred to New York, where he excelled in the truck and hijack unit, leveraging his skills as a heavy machine operator to infiltrate a vehicle theft ring, resulting in over 30 arrests and earning him a reputation as a skilled undercover agent. Spring of 1976, Pistone boldly volunteered to infiltrate the notorious Bonanno crime family, leveraging his fluency in Italian, his Sicilian heritage, and his intimate knowledge of Mafia customs, honed from his Paterson upbringing. To execute this perilous undercover operation, the FBI crafted the convincing false identity of Donnie Brasco, a low-level jewel thief with a meticulously constructed backstory. After rigorous preparation, including specialized FBI gemology courses, Pistone embraced his new persona, expertly assuming the role of a jewel thief, to gather crucial intelligence from within the Bonanno family's inner circle. September 1976, Operation Sun Apple was launched with Joseph Pistone at the helm, embedding himself in the dark underworld of organized crime. This high-stakes operation, initially slated for 6 months, would ultimately span several years. To maintain secrecy, the FBI had to erase his existence, removing his name from office records and personnel files. Colleagues, friends, and informants were left bewildered, unaware of his sudden disappearance. As Pistone delved deeper, his focus shifted from infiltrating fences and truck hijackings to exposing the Mafia's inner workings during a period of intense power struggle. His courageous undercover work yielded invaluable intelligence, shedding light on the criminal empire's most volatile era. Pistone skillfully infiltrated Joey Greca's Colombo family crew, becoming a trusted associate involved in hijackings and robberies. After 6 months, he strategically transitioned to the Bonanno family by building a rapport with Anthony Mira. When Mira was incarcerated, Pistone was mentored by seasoned Bonanno soldier Benjamin Lefty Ruggiero, who reported to Captain Mike Mimi Sabella. Pistone also formed a business relationship with Frank Balistrieri of the Milwaukee crime family, expanding his undercover reach. Following the 1979 assassination of Carmine Galante, Pistone answered to Captain Dominic Sonny Black Napolitano, further solidifying his position within the Bonanno family circle. Pistone spearheaded a thriving business venture in Holiday, Florida, by launching and operating the Kings Court Bottle Club, a lucrative enterprise that further solidified his undercover credibility. In Florida, he collaborated with fellow FBI agent Tony Rossi, also working undercover. As his reputation grew, Napolitano sought to initiate him as a made man, entrusting him with a high-stakes assignment, orchestrating the murder of Anthony Bruno Indelicato, son of Alphonse Sonny Red Indelicato. This move came after Bruno narrowly escaped death by missing a meeting that claimed the lives of his father, Philip Giacone, and Dominic Trinchera. August 17, 1981, in a brutal turn of events, Dominic Sonny Black Napolitano was assassinated for his unwitting role in allowing Pistone to infiltrate the Bonanno family. His body was found with bullet wounds and severed hands. February 18, 1982, Anthony Mira met a similar fate. Pistone later expressed his regret, stating,
My intention was to put people in jail, not get them killed.
November 1982, Ruggiero and 3 others were also convicted of racketeering conspiracy, receiving a 15-year prison sentence, a sign of Pistone's successful undercover operation. Upon his exposure in 1981, the Mafia retaliated, placing a $500,000 bounty on Pistone's head, a threat he believes remains active to this day. Even 4 decades later, the former agent must maintain a veil of secrecy over his personal life due to the perilous nature of his undercover work. The Mafia also expelled the Bonanno family from the commission. August 2, 1982, Pistone courageously testifies publicly for the first time, paving the way for a landmark takedown of organized crime. His work yielded over 200 indictments and 100 convictions, cementing his legacy as a fearless crime fighter. Even after resigning from the FBI in 1986, Pistone continued to testify in high-profile trials, including the notorious Pizza Connection case. To maintain his and his family's security, he had to get into witness protection for the rest of his life. Stephen Caracappa and Luis Ippolito.
2 cops who were hitmen for the mob. I mean, it was not like anything that we had ever seen before.
In the 1980s, these 2 undercover cops became known as the Mafia cops. They earned their reputation in ways that went against all they were to protect, but they got a taste of their own medicine. November 12, 1942, Stephen Caracappa was born. He dedicated his career to combating organized crime. 1970s, he served in the NYPD's Organized Crime Homicide Unit until his retirement on a disability pension. After a brief stint as a private investigator, he relocated to Las Vegas, Nevada, alongside his partner, Ippolito. 2006, Caracappa then worked as a corrections officer at the Las Vegas Women's Correctional Facility. July 22, 1948, Luis Ippolito came into this world in Brooklyn, New York, to Teresa, a dedicated nurse, and Ralph Ippolito, a Gambino crime family associate. His family ties to organized crime ran deep, with his uncle and cousin James Ippolito and James Ippolito Jr. serving as made members of the Gambino family under Capo Nino Gaggi's crew. Growing up in East Flatbush, Ippolito befriended various mobsters, but his uncle and cousin's brutal murders by Gaggi and Roy DeMeo, with Paul Castellano's approval, likely shaped his future choices. 1969, Ippolito concealed his family's connection when applying for the NYPD, paving the way for a duplicitous career. In 1977, Ippolito had his promotion to detective, earning him widespread recognition. In 1983, however, his success was marred by suspicion when he was investigated for allegedly leaking NYPD intelligence reports to Rosario Gambino, a distant relative of powerful mafiosos Castellano and Carlo Gambino. In 1990, although cleared of wrongdoing, the experience likely contributed to his decision to retire from the police force. In 1992, Ippolito wrote a memoir, Mafia Cop, the story of an honest cop whose family was the mob, detailing his struggles to maintain integrity amidst familial mafia ties and the fallout from the Rosario Gambino case, which he cited as a factor in his departure from the NYPD.
Would be pertinent to an investigation into Caracappa and Ippolito. And he did. He found, I think it might have been about 10 boxes worth of materials.
In 1985, things had started going wrong with these law enforcers. The two officers were initially doing good police work and providing critical information. That was up until the pressure from Ippolito's family and the Caracappa's financial pressures started to make them crack. They turned into the very criminals they were sent to apprehend. The federal authorities had identified Caracappa and Ippolito as associates of the New York City Mafia, notorious for their unscrupulous methods of policing. In 1994, according to the Lucchese family underboss, Anthony Gaspipe Caso, who sought witness protection, he and his boss, Vittorio Vicamuso, had been paying the duo $375,000 in bribes and murder contracts. Back in '86, Caso had revealed that in retaliation for an attempted hit on his life, Ippolito and Caracappa kidnapped James Heidel, a Gambino family associate, and handed him over to Caso for execution, further entwining themselves in the dark web of organized crime. Again on Caso's orders, Caracappa and Ippolito perpetrated another heinous crime, murdering Lucchese member Bruno Facciolo with Luis Dadone's assistance. Caso suspected Facciolo of being an informant, leading to his brutal death. The crime scene was marked by a chilling message, a stuffed canary in Facciolo's mouth, warning other potential informants. In a retaliatory strike for John Gotti's '85 murder of Paul Castellano, Caso directed the corrupt detectives to eliminate Gambino capo Edward Eddie Lino. In November 6, 1990, Caracappa and Ippolito ambushed Lino, pulling him over in his Benz and shooting him 9 times, again further cementing their notoriety. In the mid-90s, sweeping indictments targeted New York's crime families, prompting Caracappa and Ippolito to retire to Las Vegas. However, Caso revealed that the duo remained entangled in mob activities. In '93, Frank Lastarino enlisted the Mafia cops to assassinate John Jr. Gotti, the new Gambino family head, and Stephen Wonderboy Cree, the Lucchese family underboss. Both plots were thwarted due to timely indictments. Later, Caracappa and Ippolito conspired to kill Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano, a protected witness who had testified against John Gotti. 2003, although they failed, Gravano was eventually arrested and convicted of drug trafficking, receiving a 19-year prison sentence. In March 2005, after a thorough investigation marked by Burton Kaplan's decisive testimony against his former associates, Caracappa and Ippolito were arrested and charged with multiple counts of racketeering, obstruction of justice, extortion, and 8 counts of murder and conspiracy. The indictment involved the murders of James Heidel, Nicholas Guido, Israel Greenwald, John Otto Heidel, John Doe, Anthony DeLappy, Bruno Facciolo, Edward Lino, and Bartholomew Borriello, as well as their involvement in the plot to kill Salvatore Gravano. Kaplan, a businessman and career criminal, served as the primary accuser, delivering 2 days of riveting testimony at trial. September 17, 2008, Judge Jack B. Weinstein initially dismissed a racketeering murder conviction due to a technicality, and the federal appeals court reinstated the convictions. The city of New York settled 7 lawsuits filed by the victims' families for $18.4 million. At his sentencing, Ippolito maintained his innocence, declaring,
"The federal government can take my life, but they can't take my soul, my pride, or my dignity."
He and Caracappa received life imprisonment plus additional years and fines exceeding $4 million. July 23, 2010, their convictions were upheld by the Second Circuit Court after they appealed their sentences. Brian Terry.
Authorities along Arizona's border with Mexico are on the hunt for a bandit they say took part in the killing of a U.S. agent.
2006, the United States ATF had a brilliant scheme to aid in apprehending armed criminals and drug traffickers. It was working until it wasn't. things had gone wrong, and Brian Terry paid for it. 2006 to 2011, the Arizona U.S. Attorney's Office and ATF's Arizona Field Office employed a controversial tactic called gun walking, allowing licensed dealers to sell firearms to illegal straw buyers in Tucson and Phoenix. Now, the goal was to track the weapons to Mexican drug cartel leaders and apprehend them. October 2011, however, none of the targeted high-level cartel figures had been arrested. These operations fell under Project Gunrunner, aimed at intercepting straw buyers and gun traffickers in the U.S. to curb the flow of firearms into Mexico. In October 2009, the Jacob Chambers case was launched. By February 2010, it became Operation Fast and Furious after agents discovered the suspect's involvement in a car club. The ATF's Fast and Furious operation was marred by technical shortcomings and poor strategy. GPS units were installed on weapons that had limited battery life and frequently lost signal, especially when concealed in car trunks. The failure to effectively track weapons doomed the operation. The goal was to trace firearms to high-level traffickers and Mexican cartel bosses, leading to arrests and cartel dismantling. However, federal prosecutor Emmerly Hurley's insistence on allowing guns to walk due to lack of probable cause raised concerns among ATF agents and cooperating gun dealers. By February 2012, of the 2,000 monitored firearms, only 710 were recovered. Back in October 2011, none of the targeted leaders were arrested as of that date. Let's go back to December 14, 2010. As midnight approached, Brian Terry, a dedicated U.S. Border Patrol agent, was counting down the hours until he could finally return home to Michigan for his first family Christmas in 3 years. This guy was eager to see the joy on his nephew and niece's faces as they would unwrap their gifts he'd been hinting about. But first, he would have to complete his shift in the treacherous Arizona desert, patrolling the most dangerous drug smuggling and human trafficking route along the U.S.-Mexican border. How could he have possibly known his life was about to take a devastating turn? On that cold December night, Mr. Terry was deployed to Nogales, a significant distance from his usual post, near Bisbee. Alongside 3 fellow agents in the elite Border Patrol tactical team, he was patrolling the unforgiving terrain 10 miles north of the city, near Peck Canyon. This notorious region was a hotbed for criminal activity, with rip crews and ruthless bands of thieves preying on the vulnerable drug dealers and illegal immigrants crossing the border. The tactical team had been dispatched to conduct a high-stakes surveillance, gathering crucial intelligence to disrupt the criminal networks that operated with impunity in this lawless landscape. By 11 p.m. near Rio Rico, the tactical team spotted 5 suspects, believed to be illegal immigrants. As they approached, details of the encounter remained unclear, but a congressional Republican reported that at least 2 suspects were armed with rifles. The officers boldly identified themselves as federal agents, but the men defiantly refused to surrender their weapons, and one of them opened fire. An intense and ferocious gun battle erupted, with both sides exchanging heavy fire in this chaotic and deadly confrontation that would have dire consequences. Tragically, Brian Terry was struck by a single bullet, which proved fatal. He succumbed to that injury en route to the hospital, his life cut short at just 40 years old. With less than 4 years of service as a dedicated agent, Terry's promising career abruptly ended. An autopsy further showed that a single AK-47 bullet had pierced his lower back, severing his spinal cord and the main artery to his heart, inflicting irreparable damage.
Tonight, a final step towards justice for a Border Patrol agent murdered more than a decade ago. A federal judge sentenced the 7th and final suspect in Brian Terry's murder.
In the aftermath of the shootout, 4 suspects were apprehended in Peck Canyon, including one that had been injured in that exchange of fire. A 5th suspect managed to evade capture. Also recovered at this scene were 2 rifles traced back to the infamous Fast and Furious operation. These weapons, originally purchased for use by the Sinaloa drug cartel, were among hundreds that the ATF agents had lost track of, ultimately ending up in the hands of dangerous criminals. At a memorial service marking the 1-year anniversary of Brian Terry's sad death, Special Agent John Dodson, the ATF whistleblower who exposed the government's gun-running operation, gave a tribute.
Thank you, Brian Terry.